Big fluff.
Hello, world. It's Stephanie Smar, and I am here to tell you that I know some shit.
Exotica. Hi, everyone. I'm Joel Murphy. This is Stephanie Knows Some Shit. And with me, the Stephanie that knows some shit, Stephanie Smar.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Stephanie Knows Some Shit Smar, and I am so excited to be talking to you today about one of the most frequent things that I get asked by people who are not necessarily in the restaurant industry but want to be. What do I do if I'm just an amateur cook?
This is me, by the way. This is a question for, like, I am definitely the surrogate for this question of, like, I love watching Top Chef. I love watching cooking shows, but I have no dreams of working in a restaurant, but I just want to be an amateur chef. So please tell me and everyone, like, how do we do it?
Absolutely. So this is like one of the fun things is that food and cooking, no matter what, and I've always taken a great deal of security knowing this, we will always need to eat.
Yeah.
So if you love to cook, you already have like a total leg up on it. But I have kids coming to me, and by kids, I mean, they could be up to words of like 65, but people coming to me being like, well, how do I learn? What do I do? Do I need to go to culinary school? Like, I'm here not to dissuade you from anything, but give you like a bit of an idea on ways to like harness that passion. Because Joel, you and I have talked so much. I love cooking. Like,
yes.
I breathe, eat, sleep food. And I'm always thinking about food. I'm actually on a big thing. I don't want to throw this out here and have everybody quit their day job, but you can on Amazon Prime watch the original 1998 to 2002 versions of Iron Chef Japan.
Oh, wow.
Iron Chef Asia.
That's okay.
I have been...
Yeah.
I sit in bed. I just watched Battle Broccoli, and they literally were just using like generic, like grocery store broccoli. It was incredible.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Like, and see, and that's the stuff, like, so maybe this is a good place to start too. Cause like for me, I'm okay if I get a recipe, and I feel like these days, like, we live in a good world of, you have to get through those like really long, everybody loves to do the blog post with like 7.
Oh my God. Jump to the recipe is the greatest thing that has ever been created.
But yeah, outside of the 7 paragraphs about their history of discovering flour when they were a child.
Yeah.
But
like, I'm so glad that your Nona introduced you to all-purpose flour, but like, bitch, but I did not have time for this.
With that being said, like, we live in a golden age of the internet giving us recipes that you can follow, and I'm pretty good at that. Of like, you tell me to measure things out, you tell me the exact amounts. I can replicate something if I'm reading it, but what you're describing, that the Iron Chef skill of just looking at ingredients and being like that, visualizing like how to make something out of a pile of ingredients. That to me is the thing that separates, you know. It's
an incredible skill. And it's one, like, I have to say, when I first started cooking, so I went the traditional route. When I was a kid at like 15, 16, I got a job at a place called the Muffin Shop in Marblehead. And I never thought that the Muffin Shop would follow me through my next 20 years of my career as much as it has. But I learned how to cook. And I mean by cook, I mean like make tuna salad sandwiches and bacon, egg, and cheeses and whatnot. But that's where I got my start. And my parents, bless their souls, spent $10 quadrillion on private schools, boarding schools. So when you want to cook for the rest of your life, you don't have to go to culinary school. But if you're Stephanie Knows Some Shit Smar, your parents are going to fight you tooth and nail, and you're going to go straight to college. So I did go to culinary school, but, you know, I got my first job, and then I got my second job. And for my second job, very quickly, I was promoted to sous chef, like way faster than most people, but I was like 22. And the chef at the time used to like quiz me, and she'd be like, so you've got crab and open walk-in, like you can take anything out of there. What's your dish? And I used to literally freeze because I couldn't conceptualize, you know, because you're new to this. And it's one of those things that really comes with experience. Now, the first bombshell tip that I'm going to drop, if you're a cook who loves like experimenting, like really gets into it, there is an incredible book called The Flavor Bible. I don't know who wrote it. It's got a black cover. Mine is from the beginning days of when I started cooking. And it literally lists like 500, 600, 1,000 different ingredients. And then it breaks down what they go well together with. So like you look up crab, for example, it might say melon, tarragon, butter, capers, red herring, who knows? But you can start to like learn what flavors go really well via that. And I think there's like all these really great resources. And I guess I'm old school in the sense like a paperback book. I will never buy your ebook cookbook. I want to touch it. I want to get flour on it. I want to like dirty it up. I want to like, it's a whole thing for me.
It's funny because when you said that though too, like as soon as you started describing this book, which sounds awesome, I was like, I wonder if someone made an app that does that. Like,
there's definitely an app. There's definitely an app.
Yeah.
But if you're one of those cooks who loves, like, I feel like a lot of people who have cooking as not their career, but their passion, you know, the thing that makes them tick. They're probably a very tactile person too. They want to touch, they want to see, they want to look. It's an incredible book. I used to gift it to any cooks who I saw potential, but also that sort of like, I don't know what I'm doing quite yet. It's absolutely amazing. And we'll get into the whole culinary school thing in a second. But one thing that I can say, especially we filmed Top Chef Amateurs like a year and a half ago. And these people didn't have that restaurant experience. Like one of the kids worked at IKEA. Another one was like, I don't know, he did something with brains, like human brains. I don't know what it was. I was like, sir.
Something with brains.
Yeah, he's very smart guy.
Yeah.
Very smart guy. I was like, okay, we're not on the same level. But the most important thing is to like enjoy your passion. You know, and now it's so amazing. And I am not like an advocate for social media, especially in like the people I have to mute because I'm like, I'm so glad I know your point of view on that now. May I never be bombarded with this information again.
Yeah.
But there are incredible, like my good friend Chris, he's from Canada. He's actually somebody who I became friends with on Instagram. Like, and now I have his phone number and we like WhatsApp, which is like a big step for me. He's an accountant. He is very like focused. He likes music and he likes food. Those are his two main passions. And he spends his weekends and stuff like creating these gorgeous dishes, and he gets to the nitty gritty of it, and he loves this passion and it makes him tick. And the thing that I always want to remind people, and something that like I struggle in my daily life, is not everything has to be your 100%. It just needs to be your 100% in the moment. So if you're craving, like for lunch, I had a cheeseburger. Okay. What's the greatest cheeseburger? It was pretty good, actually. I'm not gonna lie. It was. I made it myself. It was really good. But like everything that I put into my body, whether it be healthy, whether it be junk food, whether it be, it's all to fuel this passion for whatever I'm looking for, whether it be comfort, whether it be vibrancy or flavor, or just the experience of doing something with the repetition. That's why I make so much pasta. If you enjoy the passion of cooking, it's never going to let you down. And if you're like, oh, but I make this and it always comes out like shit, feed it, learn how to compost. Like it's just, there's so many great things you can do without throwing it away that will also benefit nature. I was going to say throw it away, but like I can already feel just the heat rising from people being like, that's going to be wasteful. But it's just, food is forgiving, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Food's forgiving.
I think that's the other thing too that like you kind of touched on there that I think is like there's always that like American mentality, that like grind culture of you know well, you like cooking, so it should be a business. It should be, you got to turn this into like a profit. And it's like, yeah, your friend is a perfect example. Like people have day jobs and they like cooking. That's how I am. Like I have no aspiration to like do this professionally. I get stressed out and I like to to bake or to, you know, try to cook something, you know, like that's very soothing. And I like that it's not. But yeah, I think there's such an important thing to just be like, this can be a fun thing that you're doing that isn't a competition. You're not trying to, you know, like it doesn't matter.
You're not trying to take over. You don't need accolades. And we all struggle with it. Like I take this workout class, and within the first 2 weeks of being there, I was like, well, I need to get certified as an instructor now.
Right. Yeah. You got to turn it into a business.
But I couldn't talk any louder into the microphone. I have no business teaching a room full of humans how to work out. Half the time I'm waiting for the instructor to turn around so I can stop doing the exercise. Like, no. And taking that pressure off yourself, it's like, just enjoy it. You know, not every painter that paints sells their artwork. And we respect that because we're like, oh, that's their therapy.
Right.
Food can be that for you. Just you don't have to be the best. Like, you're not getting judged. And if you're cooking for somebody, I've had some of the worst food and thought it was delicious because somebody else made it for me.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
People are always, most of my favorite restaurants are not great, but I have like awesome experiences, and I know somebody was like super psyched about it. So take off the pressure of thinking it has to be something it's not. My little brother Wyatt's a great example. He never cooked. He has a like true life phobia of sticky things on his hands. He's taken up baking.
Oh, nice.
Now, he's basically starting out with a sourdough loaf, and by the time it becomes dough, it's about the size of a slider bun because he's washing his hands so much. But he like enjoys it. He's going through this whole process. He just moved into an apartment by himself where he can do it. Wyatt is going to not become a baker.
Yeah.
But he enjoys it. And I think, especially coming from my point of view, that's really inspiring if you've got something you enjoy.
Yeah. Also, it's super satisfying, that part where you're like pulling the bread to try to like get it into the ball, like to proof. Like,
yes,
it's a very satisfying tactile sensation.
That's what I love about cooking. I like things to have a beginning and end.
Yeah.
All of my things, more or less. Like I don't like the middle. And with cooking, you start with an idea and you end with a product. And the process of going through it is more enjoyable to me than eating it.
Yeah.
Like, I just love all the stuff, the smells. Like, I really don't even eat meals. I graze all day.
Yeah.
And think about food. And graze and think about food. So that is my first piece of advice. And then also, I have like a very extensive cookbook collection that I actually had like an intervention because 10 years ago, I was making like, I wish I was joking about this, but I was making like $33,000 a year living on my own. And I would buy a cookbook a week because I had to. That was like the little piece of joy that I got out of the grind.
Yeah.
And I just had no money and was constantly like, Mom, Dad. Needless to say, I'm still on the cell phone plan 10 years later. But, buy physical cookbooks and actually read the introduction. Read all the pages. I don't have a passion for baking, but I always read those parts because I still have to bake a lot. These people, the amount of work, I watched my best friend Kristen go through it. She wrote a cookbook. Now I don't know the title. I assume it's like called like Kristen Kish or something, or like My Boo Boo. I don't know what it's called, but it's a beautiful. I own 2. Just DM me and I'll send you the second copy. But
I feel like the Kish-in. I don't know. Is there like a kitchen?
Oh, kitchen. Imagine if she named it that.
Yeah.
She wrote a cookbook. She told me, let's say in 2015, she's like, I'm going to write a cookbook. That shit did not come out until 2018 or 19, because she had to test the recipes 97,000 times. These are people that have made the mistakes for you, so you're not going to come home and make them for yourself.
Is that something, now I'm curious, is that something you ever see yourself doing? Like, do you think you'll ever try to make a cookbook? Or
there's actually, I teeter around with the idea a lot, but I also don't have a 3-year attention span. But there's these incredible women, Christopher Hamilton, and I forget the other woman's name. They used to have, and they still do to a certain degree, this place called Canal House, and they used to come out with these quarterly cookbooks, and they were short, they were simple, they were really beautifully designed, but they were like $15, you know, and they were just like really, really cool. And they had small recipes, and I could see myself doing something like that, more of like a test kitchen cookbook. But after watching all of my friends, and all of my friends have cookbooks, I'm good.
I feel like there's
you have to think of a story with everyone.
Yeah, I also imagine this whole thing that we're talking about, for someone who is a professional chef, it's a skill in and of itself to be able to tell someone how, like, because I remember doing exercises like that where anytime you try to explain something to someone that you think makes sense in your head, but you start to explain something to someone who you can't take for granted, like what they'll know. So it's like you have to write a cookbook in a way that is clear for anyone who picks it up to be able to follow. Because I've definitely had that where I've looked through cookbooks, and some of them I'm like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what words you're using.
Oh my God.
I don't know this technique that you were assuming that I know, you know.
Magnus Nielsen came out with this book. He's an incredible chef. It was called Flaviken. And you had to like grow your own cattle for the first recipe. And I was like, dude, I mean, for some, they can totally geek out on that. For me, I'm like, if I'm going to grow a cow, that cow will be living its best life until it naturally passes away at the age of 62. You know, I can't do it. So really look, and like one of the first cookbooks where I was like, shit, this is something I didn't know, and now it really makes sense, was the Momofuku cookbook. Oh yeah. Really helped me because I didn't know anything about Asian food, fusion food. Like, loved to eat it. Didn't really. They teach you how to cook like French food in culinary school. So I definitely suggest supporting those cookbooks. And like, if you're like my brother-in-law, Bob, who I love, who I hope listens to this, Bob likes 5 ingredients less. 5 ingredients or less. That's where he stops. And that's good for Bob. And at least he's doing it. Yeah.
That's also, I mean, that's a thing too. Like, cause that's, you know, some of these cookbooks, it's like 20, 30 ingredients. Like there's sometimes you got to find that middle ground of like, I'm good with more than 5, but if I'm buying specialty ingredients for this one dish that I'm trying for the first time
to make.
It's
like you got to build up to it. So go out and buy cookbooks. I always think that I just need to like curate a list of the cookbooks I couldn't live without. Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah.
And put that somewhere, because there are certain books where I'm just like, oh, this is the shit. Like there's this Gordon Ramsay cookbook, and I can't, like, before you're like, Gordon Ramsay, pre stupid sandwich, Gordon Ramsay, or whatever he said, idiot sandwich.
Yeah.
He used to have a restaurant, it might still be there, called Maze in London. And I love the cookbook. You know what I mean? It had just like, I still refer to it sometimes. There's just some cookbooks where I'm like, oh, these are like the hidden gems. They're not the Ina Gardens, who I'm not shaming, but they're not the Bobby Flews. That's what David calls them, Bobby Flay. They're just really good cookbooks. So we'll work on that, but support them, and just know that if you're like, well, they already have so much money, why do I have to buy their cookbook? You make like a penny from selling cookbooks. Like it just goes back to the man, whoever that is.
There's some guy. There's one dude.
Mr. Penguin. I don't know where it goes, but
maybe it is a penguin. Maybe a penguin.
Yeah, because then they're Penguin Publishers.
That is a publisher. So yeah.
I definitely suggest it. And also, if you're like, I don't want to go on these blogs, you and I were just joking, they have created this amazing thing at the top of the webpage that's Jump to Recipe. And like, thank you to every food blogger. We love your stories. But thank you for just letting me get to this recipe for chicken cacciatore. Like, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, especially if I've already looked at it once and now I need the recipe because I'm actually making it and I need to like get back to it. I'm refreshing.
You're doing like a bicep workout, just trying to scroll down.
Yes.
In a world where people watch movies,
I think I'm going to watch a movie.
Sometimes they don't like what they see.
I don't like this movie.
But sometimes They look for the silver lining.
Wait a second. I like this part of this movie.
Joel and Andy do that work for you. The Silver Linings Playback.
I like this part of this podcast where they tell me the part of the movie I like.
Every Monday on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
And then that leads me, do you need to go to culinary school?
Yeah.
This is a big one. I went to culinary school at 18. And I hope I don't upset anybody, it's my biggest regret that I did not at least take a year off to work in restaurants.
Oh, before.
And then go to culinary school.
Yeah, to like get experience.
To get experience, to see what I was getting into. And it's not because it would have changed my career trajectory. I was too young to go to culinary school. Yeah. I was too stubborn. I was 18. I was like, oh, I'm not going to tuck my fingers in when I cut. Like, I'm going to hold on to this carrot for dear life and like potentially cut the tips of my fingers off. I was too stubborn and naive and a little bit like my ego was too big. So that's my culinary school regret. Do I regret going to culinary school? Absolutely not.
What do you feel what do you get out of culinary school in your opinion?
More than learning how to cook, you get a real sense of like kind of that you have to show up with. You get a certain level of professionalism, I would say, because every day you have to wear this like starched uniform, bring your knives need to be sharp, you're being checked on, and you're like, this is so dumb. All that stuff happens in the real world. Did I learn how to cook? No. Did I need to take so many bong rips in college? No. I probably would have learned a lot more if I wasn't high as a kite. So
that's really
like, just to be completely honest.
This tightrope of these bong hits and not tucking your fingers in with the knife skills.
I was a mess. I was a mess. Yeah. And it took me 4.25 years to graduate. I went on to get a business degree too, because my parents were still like, you have to stay in school. But you know, if you're passionate and you love school, don't listen to what anybody says. Go to school. There are some people who love school. Not to bring back my brother Wyatt, but Wyatt loves school, and it's where he gets better at things. He went to music school without necessarily like the aspiration to become a full-time musician, but it's his passion. He loves it, and school's good for him. Yeah. So if you want to go. If you don't have a lot of money and this is going to really harm you, go work in restaurants. You will be fine, because every chef is going to make mashed potatoes a different way. They're going to boil the potatoes with the skin on. You go work for the next guy, he peels the potatoes. One doesn't salt, one doesn't use butter, one heats the cream before they add it. You're never going to work. There's no Bible that we all go back and look on and say, this is the only way it's done. Unless it's bread. And I don't know how to make bread, so that's different. But like, you don't have to go, and don't put yourself at risk for suffering because you can't. My husband, bless his soul, went to culinary school at he was 25. He wanted to go to school. He wanted to get a degree. He lived 40 minutes from his culinary school. School started at 6:30 in the morning. He'd go to school from 6:30 to 1, drive to B&G Oysters, take a nap in the parking lot for an hour, work until midnight, drive the hour home, finish his homework. He crashed a car because he fell asleep at the wheel. Yeah. He was fine. He was fine, but he went off the road. It really it was way more of a struggle, and he's incredibly successful now, but he now looks back on it and he's like, I didn't need to do that. He will tell everybody, I wish I had taken the $30,000 and traveled. Yeah. And then he was in debt for a really long time, so make educated decisions as you would if you were going to a traditional non-trade school. Is this a good idea? Because no chef's going to be like, you didn't go to culinary school? I can't hire you. Especially if they're an independent recipe, they're never going to look at your resume. I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah.
And once you get into restaurants, and this is literally, we have like a few more things to talk about, but this is going to be the biggest thing you can take away. And this goes to anybody in any career. When you have a boss, they are not looking to promote you if you deserve one, because they are so happy that you showed up to work. They don't want to tip the scales. So always advocate for yourself. If you're a dishwasher looking to become that salad cook, your chef, your boss, whatever you're doing, is so relieved that you show up every day to work that they're not going to promote you. And it's not because you don't deserve it. It's because, number one, they're not thinking about it. And number two, they're not thinking about it. So they might tell you to F off for a second, but you have to plant your own seeds if you want to really make it work in a restaurant. And I'm trying to take hustle out of my vocabulary because, like, hustle's not cool.
Yeah.
I guess hustle's cool if you're rich, but like, we're not rich. So hustle's gotten us nowhere. Like,
yes.
You know, like, we hustle, but we're still scrimping and scraping. But be an advocate for yourself and do it for the passion of really loving what you do. And I only realized this after I became a boss, and I had a lot of cooks who were like very capable of going further than they were. And it wasn't until they said something, my eyes were open. So, and you can always reach out to me because I will give this advice till the day I die. Just the most helpful thing is, the worst you're going to hear is no. And if you hear no, has anybody seen how many restaurants are open on just one block? You can go.
Well, especially like right now, like in this current moment that we're living in, like I feel like people have more room, like more mobility to go
Absolutely.
somewhere.
You are.
Yeah.
Don't say it to your boss, but like, you've got the power because you're the one.
Yeah.
They have to show up.
Yeah.
They signed a mental, verbal paper contract. They're stuck. You are not. So.
Well, but that also brings up the question too of, so if you haven't gone to culinary school, how hard is it to get a job in a restaurant? Like actually cooking?
It's not.
Like,
if you have to, are you going to get hired at Noma or the French Laundry as a zero experience cook? No. But are you going to get hired at that one really nice restaurant in your town, especially at any age? Absolutely. It's not hard. You say, if they apply for the job, they say, I have no experience. My best advice to you is say, but I'd love to come in for a night and we call it a stage. It's spelled like stage. But it's basically coming in for an unpaid shift where that you can prep, you can do X, Y, and Z. You just show up and you say, well, I know I have no experience, but I'm willing to come in for a night and I will watch the line. I'll do whatever prep you need. And then at the end of the night, we can like look back on it. And you can, if you saw promise, whatever. And like, what are you going to lose spending one night doing something that you potentially want to do forever?
Yeah.
Nothing. I've done plenty of stages with jobs. I've had jobs, but I've gone to like a restaurant where I was curious about how they do it. Just spent the night watching. It's the shit. So you can get a job. You can get a job. Mm-hmm. For a long time, restaurants were people who couldn't get jobs. And now, what's that meme? It's like tattoos used to be sign of a motorcycle gang, and now it's the sign that you can baste a really beautiful pork belly. Like, you'll be good. So just offer your services if you're really passionate. Passion's more exciting than experience a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. All right. So we covered that. We covered culinary school. We covered cookbooks. How about like just someone who's trying to get better, like, like tracking, I don't know, that you're getting better. Like, how does someone know? Yeah.
Dude, thank you, Instagram, TikTok, and all of the other things. Document your work, take pictures, throw parties, have people over, bring food in to your workplace. Nobody ever turns their nose down to free food.
That's true.
I don't.
No, that's true. Yeah.
I don't. And having a party, like maybe if you have a party and you are into wine, you do the wine pairings and you find that's an avenue you want to go down or kind of like explore more. Food's social. So, and it also, if you struggle with not being very social, but have a few close friends, it gives you something to do so you don't have to be so focused on conversation the whole time.
It's a good way to
things.
It's a good way.
It's a good way
to like be like, I gotta get up and go to the kitchen to check on the thing.
Yeah.
You might not have to go check on the thing. You can just leave.
Like give yourself a breather.
Yeah. Just take 5. Just walk out. Yeah, it's a good.
I do not like throwing dinner parties whatsoever, but I have made a career in cooking for them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you, we were talking about this before. I don't want you in my house. I get very nervous about it. Like, what if you don't leave? What if I have to fall asleep? Like, all these things. I love cooking for people, though. So throwing parties just in other people's houses is like my jam.
Yeah, because then you can pack up and go home.
I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Like,
the best part of, like, parties are fun, but the best part of a party for me is like when you get home after the party.
Yeah, absolutely. You're full.
Yeah.
You're good. Yeah, absolutely. So do that, and always make food that if you're not feeling it and it's going to be torture, just make yourself some queso. Like, there's no point in making a 5-course meal if all you want is just a quick and easy, you know? Again, like we said earlier, there's no need to turn something you enjoy into a job.
All right, you said now that's a good question because you said queso is like an easy thing. What is something if someone's listening to this episode right now and maybe they've been thinking about cooking, but they've been intimidated, they're not sure where to start. What's like, do you have a recommendation of just a layup of a recipe to start? Like something, grilled cheese, I don't know, like something that's just going to be like, yeah.
I feel like, there's so many, a cheeseburger.
Yeah. Why
is a cheeseburger difficult? Well, I like mine medium well. What if you like medium rare? So you're kind of teaching yourself how to do that. And then you can it's all those simple things where you can buy the beautiful heirloom tomato if it's in season, the great head of lettuce. I grew up making sandwiches is like one of my favorite things because, I actually had to like teach David this because he never cut my sandwiches. And I was like, do you not even love me? Like, you don't even cut my sandwich in half. He was like, excuse me. And I was like, my mom cuts my sandwiches. We started dating at like 25. So it's been, but all those little caring things. I think that like chicken's very forgiving. There's a lot of great stews and braises. It's just anything that you start cooking, make sure that you're cooking like with the intention of it being something you're proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you go diagonal or do you go in the middle?
I go diagonal.
Yeah. Diagonal, I think, is the right way. I think that's.
Yeah. Because otherwise, like, there's too much crust ratio to everything else. So, yeah, definitely diagonal.
Yeah. I think that's the pro move. That feels like.
Yeah. Like, squares are okay. Like, if you're going to cut it in half, you have to cut it into fourths.
Oh, but then I don't like fourths.
I don't like that either. But I'm just saying, like, if I have to, I will.
That's like a club sandwich or something at that point.
The worst of all the sandwiches.
It's too much bread.
It's too much bread.
Yeah.
It's too much bread. It's too wide.
Yeah.
Do you know that the reason why they put the frilly toothpicks in a club sandwich is because somebody bit into the frilly toothpick and like impaled themselves?
Well, the toothpicks are bad.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it's no good.
It's actually a law that it has to have some sort of like knot
to
or
warn
plastic.
you.
Yeah, like it's just like how hot coffee has to say it's hot coffee.
Yeah,
because that one woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These are the things, guys.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, maybe this is related to that, but I know that we like to end the shows with you sharing embarrassing things similar to those that you have done.
Yeah. And today we have a doozy. So if you're like, but something could go so wrong if I start working in restaurants, or I can embarrass myself so badly if I do X, Y, and Z. This is a little story about my 11th day at a new job out of culinary school. So because of my mother was a flight attendant. She had this great friend, Debbie. Debbie's husband was the manager of Top of the Hub, and I needed a job. And like Top of the Hub was on the 52nd floor of the Prudential Center. Like to me, it was like they had foie gras. They also had steak and cheese egg rolls or Reuben egg rolls. I don't know. It was a whole thing, but whatever. So my mom gets me this job and I'm pumped. I'm nervous. I buy new knives. I don't know how to cook. Let me preface. I do not know how to cook. And this story is not knowing about cooking. So you know, this is where I meet Kristen Kish, and she's like this gorgeous model, and I'm just like frumping my way through trying to learn how to cut a tomato. And I'm like, please God, just nobody notice me and let me go fast. And we're on a good roll. And so Top of the Hub was fucking enormous. It was enormous. I can't even describe. It was like 7,000 square feet, and the kitchen was half of the upstairs. So we used to have to trim the foie gras. Fine. But then we froze it because like waste not, want not, and you can melt it down. Whatever. Doesn't matter how I ended up in the freezer. Mm-hmm. However, Kristen's like, I'll show you where we put the scraps. So we open the industrial 200-pound door to the freezer, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, because it flashes before my eyes and still does. I somehow had my finger in between the jamb of the door, thinking that the door wasn't going to shut. I know you're going to barf.
Yeah.
So there's no blood.
That's good.
Somehow the door comes and shuts. And I shit you not, I am in a negative 32-degree freezer. My body goes hot. Ooh. And Kristen looks at me, and I've already decided we're best friends, but she doesn't know we are yet. And she looks at me and she's like, you okay? And I'm not moving. I'm like, I somehow get the door open, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, definitely broken. But, you know, I'm a cook. You never get sick. You never get hurt. So I'm like, I'm just going to do this. This is my middle finger on my right hand. I am right-handed. So my finger is just swelling up to the size of my fist. And I'm like, I like whisper, I'm like, Kristen, I shut my finger in the door. And she's like, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like, I know. I was like, you've got to do something. So she like gets me an ice pack, and I'm like cooking with my left hand. I can do nothing with my left hand. So my chef, Mark Picaro, he's still out there. He's still crushing it. He's a good dude. Mm-hmm. He's like, what's up? I was like, I shut my hand in the freezer. And he looks at it. He's like, well, you have to go to the hospital. I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital. He's like, you literally have to go to the hospital. And at this point, it's like black, purple. All the cooks are looking at me, and they're like, what the dumb blonde girl do? And I'm like, I shut my finger in the freezer. So I end up having to go to the hospital, which I walk to because I'm mad, and I'm making a statement by walking.
That'll show them.
Walk to the hospital in my chef whites, like clearly says Top of the Hub on my chef coat. And I get there, and the woman's like, what the hell happened to you? And I'm like, I slammed my finger in the door. She's like, you're an idiot. So they like wrap it up, and I try to go back to work, and Mark's like, we'll see you in like 4 days. And I'm like, okay. So that's how I broke my finger in the freezer door of a restaurant on my 11th day of work, and was just deemed a liability from then on out. So no matter what you do, keep your finger away from door jams.
How many of these stories end with you in the hospital? Are they all like...
I was just about to go on to the time I broke my foot eating a crab rangoon in the middle of the night. So we can just keep going. There's, you know, every time I've been to the hospital has been food related, except for like a colonoscopy. And I won't get into that.
That's kind of food related.
It's a little food related.
Yeah.
It all goes back. Literally. You know, but yeah. Yeah, no, most of them end up with me in the hospital.
Okay, good.
Because I don't do anything small. None of them end up bloody, though. So for the rest of your time listening to Joel and I, you don't have to worry about like bloody stories. Oh, no, I've got a couple. I've got a couple.
All right, well,
I'll save them for next time.
That's a hell of a teaser, I feel like, for the next episode.
You know, maybe I'll pull out the iceberg lettuce and the generic knife story. Who knows?
All right. Well, yeah. So hopefully we inspired some people to try cooking if you haven't, or to, you know, try to document your cooking, throw some parties. Yeah, but this is a really fun episode. I feel good. I feel like I learned some stuff. And I'm going to find that cookbook. Like, now I'm curious about that. The
Flavor Bible.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. You can follow us on all the social media stuff. We're on Instagram. The show's on Instagram at Stephanie Knows Some Shit. You are on Instagram at
Stephanie Smar.
At Stephanie Smar. And people can follow me at Hobo Radio Podcast. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks everybody. And don't forget, if you're confused, we probably are too. But together, we can hopefully figure it out.
Stephanie Knows Some Shit is hosted by Stephanie Smarr and me, Joel Murphy, and produced by me. If you enjoyed the show, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, and instead of a review, tell us about a meal that you ate or made recently. We'd love to read about it.
We Have to Ask. It's a podcast where we answer the question, are you going to eat that?
What will you leave behind?
Why get out of bed?
Will you be our neighbor?
I'm Marty.
And I'm Jonathan.
We're two hosts.
Infinite Universes.
We have to ask.
New interviews every Tuesday.
Find us on iTunes or online at wehavetoask.com or with the other great podcasts on the Peak Sloth Network at peaksloth.com.